The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Hey, all right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, July 10th, 2017. I think this is what I want to show you here. Yeah, that's what I want you to see on your screen. Just working on some new graphics and whatnot. Now, when I said that I was back tonight, I wasn't completely honest. Well, I'm honest. I'm here. We're live. We're streaming. I'm just not broadcasting in video tonight. I am broadcasting audio only. And, hey, at least you don't have to look at my ugly mug for an entire hour while we talk about the news. So, a lot's been going on. Been away on a vacation. And so first I want to do is thank all of you who have been so patient while I was gone. Thanks to everyone who supported us, all the patrons who listened to the morning broadcast, all the new patrons. Shout out to all the new patrons who signed up while I was gone so that they can get the morning broadcast every morning. And so this is just a temporary thing for tonight, maybe tomorrow? I don't know for sure, but we'll have full video stream. I'm not streaming from my regular studios in Boston. I'm actually streaming from Content Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. And, you know, I have the ability to do awesome video here. I just haven't finished setting it up. I have a whole brand new set of things that I want to share with you that I worked on while I was gone. And so, anyway, a lot to talk about. I don't have my phone lines tonight. Obviously, if I don't have video, there's a good chance I don't have my phone lines. But I want to get your feedback in the chat rooms. There's a lot of news that we've missed since I've been gone. I'm not going to try to recapture or re-talk about everything that we missed. We're going to talk about the news that's pressing today. But I do want your input and I want your feedback. So leave your comments in the comment section below, and we will discuss them as we get them. And as always, you can leave comments on Facebook, YouTube, and or Twitter. All right, so before I get started, I have to do something. I have to do something for the culture, as the kids say. I've got to give a special shout out to the one guy who I can honestly credit with the Benjamin Dixon Show starting. And that's my brother, Robin. I'm Ben, he's Robin. Robin Dixon. Today is his birthday. Could you all give a shout out to my brother, Robin Dixon, on his birthday? He actually is the guy who looked at me in the living room of my crib and said, Ben, you need to go ahead and start a show. And he insisted on it. And because of that, we have the Benjamin Dixon Show today. So I just have to take a second to thank my homeboy, my brother, and wish him a happy birthday on today. With that being said, let's talk about the news. How about that? It's been a while. Donald Trump. No, I'm joking. I'm not starting with Donald Trump. But I am starting with the Republican Party. I'm starting with the Republican Party and their hatred. Oh, see, I knew I could count on the chat room and Facebook to give my brother that shout out. So thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it. I just fired up that chat room. I'll be firing up the Twitter chat room as well as the Facebook chat room. And as always, my producers will grab some comments if I missed them and give it to me, right? So we can make sure that we get everyone involved who needs to be involved. I'm looking for my mouse here because I want to play this thing again. I love that graphic. Anyway, all right, seriously, let's get down to the news. The Republican Party there's a survey that's out. And the survey freaking blows my mind. It's a survey about the opinions based on college. Like, how do you feel about college? How do you feel about college? Do you think college has a negative impact, or do you think college has a positive impact? And when we say that the Republican Party is the modern day flat earthers, they are the modern day know-nothing party. when we say that, we actually mean it. Like, it's not hyperbole anymore. Seriously, it's not hyperbole. The Republican Party is the know-nothing party, the do-nothing party, the flat earthers, the modern flat earthers of today. There's a survey that came out today that shows that a majority of Republicans actually think that college is a bad thing. Now, there's all kinds of things that actually play into this, right? There's all types of long-term implications of Republican propaganda, this general consensus amongst conservatives that colleges are by default liberal. And because they're by default liberal, basically nothing good can come out of those parties, come out of the college. And so that has had an effect, a staggering effect and a quick effect on the Republican Party. The majority of Republicans now think that colleges are a net negative on America, or have a negative impact on America. I want you to think about that for a second, right? It sounds ridiculous, and it is, but to have, I mean, seriously, what can you do in America? Okay, let me rephrase that. Let me start that over. There's a lot that you could do in America without a college education. But I think the majority of us understand that a college education is as critical as a high school diploma. Now, there's still things that you could do without a college education, right? But to have this negative view of education, college education, and especially to have that negative view based on political propaganda that has been espoused, or spewed is actually the word I'm looking for, that has been spewed so long and so consistently that now Republicans, the majority of them, believe that it is a negative thing to have a college education. And this isn't about, right, this is completely the opposite of what I just talked about. Right. It's not about Republicans saying that, oh, you can get further in life if when you get out of high school, go start working right away. That's not what is driving this, right? It would be different if they would take that train of thought, which is arguable. I think it's arguable. We can actually have that debate because a lot of people get into college debt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about that. For Republicans, it is 100% about the fact that they believe that college campuses drive liberal agendas. And the reality of it is that the more education you get, the more likely you are to challenge the norms that you grew up with, the customs that you grew up with. You're more likely to challenge your parents when you get exposed to a world of education and a world of other ideas of college professors who might very well be progressive, might very well be liberal, right? And all the ways that conservatives fear. But what they fear more than anything else is not that you're getting exposed to a liberal agenda. What they actually fear is that you're getting exposed to something that will make you question your deeply held beliefs. You know, there's nothing like an education to make you question what your parents taught you. Nothing like an education to question what your pastor and your preacher taught you. You know, that's real. And they fear that the more knowledge you get, the more likely you are to reject conservatism. Bruh, we cannot help it. Seriously, now think about this. We cannot help it if conservatism depends on a level of ignorance. Think about that. You honestly have to have a level of ignorance to maintain some of these deeply held conservative ideas. And therefore, it's in the interest of the propagandistic interest of conservatives and Republicans to reject higher education. And isn't it just ironic that this falls lockstep with the ascent of Donald Trump into the presidency? I want to give you the actual numbers. It's ridiculous. 58% of conservatives, of Republicans, believe that college has a negative impact on America. It has a negative effect on the way things are going in the country. Since 2015, there was a dramatic shift. In 2015, it was about 55% who thought it had a positive effect on America. 2016 was the inflection point. That's when everything turned around. And in 2017, now it's 58% of Republicans think that America has been negatively affected by colleges and universities. 36% think that it is positively affected. We are seriously moving into a world of stupidity, man. We're seriously moving into a world of, before I finish that, repeat that kind of, it really is based on the fact that Republicans have to reject science, they have to reject common sense, they have to reject logic. And don't get me wrong, you're going to find examples of that in neoliberalism. You're going to find examples of that in the Democratic Party. Pardon me. You're going to find examples of that in any party. Because, I mean, look at this. It is dramatically different, right? But I want you to look, you still have 19% of Democratic-leaning Americans who believe that college has a negative effect on the way things are going in America. So this is not something relegated only to conservatives, right? But we're not going to draw false equivalence here either, right? There's a dramatic 72% of Democratic-leaning Americans believe, and I'm sure that includes a broad swath of everyone who's not Republican. What I say nowadays is that anyone who is progressive, liberal, neoliberal, leftist, Democrat, green, anyone who is not a Republican, right? There's a really broad spectrum of the left in the United States, and not all of us agree. And in fact, we are locked in, our horns are locked in a fierce debate between the left, progressives, and liberals and neoliberals in the Democratic establishment. Right? So, but there's still 19% of us on this side who think college has a negative impact. And of course, you're going to get to the conversation of political correct culture. And I'm not one who thinks that everything that happens on college campuses is a good thing, right? There's some things that I've seen on college campuses of late that I can't say that I holistically reject, but I feel as though it definitely needs a critique. I actually kind of like not having a camera because I'm like walking all the way around, all the way around the damn studio. Like I'm lecturing at a university. So there are things that happen on college campuses that definitely demand a critique. I personally do not believe that the public square people should expect to have a safe space in the public square. This is something that you see on a lot of college campuses, where they're trying to go into the public and demand a safe space in the public for them to say anything they want to say unchallenged. I disagree with that. However, the college as a whole has a net positive on the United States. I mean, in every way imaginable. Why do we even have to discuss this? Well, shit, we have to discuss this because you've got the majority of Republicans who now think that it's a negative effect. Now, don't get it twisted. These are the same people. They're going to make sure their kids go to college, right? So I don't want people to think that this is like a class thing, that it's going to be poor. It's going to be poor Republicans who think this. No, these are wealthy Republicans who think this, who absolutely hate what liberal colleges have done to America, but they sure as hell are not going to not send their kids to college. They're going to make sure their kids are at the best institutions their money can buy. Because as we can see, as we recall from the primaries and from the general election, Donald Trump's support base were not the poorest Americans. I think the median income of Donald Trump supporters during the primaries was like $72,000 a year. And I know that's not a lot of money for wealthy people, but for the average American, that's well above the median income for the average American. So all of that to say that this is not something that we could throw at the feet of those poor Republicans who support Donald Trump and don't know no better. No, this includes wealthy Americans. Wealthy Americans who have a conservative agenda, who absolutely hate what liberal colleges are doing to America, and yet they push this narrative to the detriment of higher education, but they sure as hell are going to make sure that their kids are there getting the best higher education they can. That's the irony of it. And it all coincides, man. America, literally, looking at the data on this graphic of this survey, America literally got dumber in 2016. Congratulations, America. Congratulations, Republicans. We have played ourselves. All right, let's take a quick stab. Let's take a quick stab at some comments here. Again, thanks for my producer reminding the audience that there's no camera tonight. There's only this beautiful graphic of my new logo on the screen, and you can hear me. Great. Conservatives love stupidity. Better yet, they're fascists, from GA5524 on YouTube. I have to agree. They definitely love stupidity. They thrive. They depend on stupidity, man. Like, all jokes aside, they 100% depend on the stupidity of some of their voters. The other set of their voters like to pretend like they're stupid, but they know damn well what they're doing. They know damn well that what their economic policies are going to do to America. They know exactly what their environmental policies are going to do to the environment. They know exactly what their race-baiting language does and the divisiveness. They're the masters of propaganda. So they're stupid. If we're going to call them stupid, we have to put it contextual. We have to contextualize it, right? They're stupid for a political agenda. They're stupid on purpose. They're intentionally obtuse, is what I call. They are intentionally obtuse. They will ignore nuance when it suits them, but then they will require nuance, and they will delve into the deepest nuance imaginable when they want you to give the benefit of the doubt to someone who said something that it was bigoted. Like, we see this all the time. So they definitely have the intellectual capacity to be the masters of propaganda, but they understand the value of playing stupid. All right, one or two more comments and I want to move on. Conservatives love tradition. This is from Donald Martin on YouTube. He said, conservatives love tradition and the status quo and systems of norms. It's a status quo mentality. And anything that challenges that, right? I mean, I guess I can understand, right? Me being a religious person, fairly religious. It's been a while since I've been to church, but that's besides the point. Me being a religious person, I fully understand how getting more knowledge, getting more understanding of how the world and the universe works, getting more understanding of logic and reasoning, I fully understand how that can be threatening to someone's religiosity. It wasn't necessarily a threat to my religiosity, but I fully understand how everyone else, whoever else, the more you learn, the more it challenges your religion, your faith. And so I get it, right? I get conservatives are like, tradition and the earth is 6,000 years old, and anything outside of that is a direct challenge to their religion and to their faith. And where else are you going to get, the number one place that you're going to get that type of education is going to be inside of your colleges and universities. Hopefully that would trickle down to our secondary schools eventually. But this is another component, right? It's not just about political correct culture, but it's also about their rejection of anything that challenges their religiosity. And campuses and universities are going to be definitely the number one place where you're going to find that. But number one thing the most important thing for this, though, is for us to understand that this level of ignorance that the Republican Party and conservatives are parroting and pushing and promoting, it's all strategic. It's strategic ignorance. They are not dumb by design. It's the classic city slicker versus the country guy, right? The country guy, I don't know the official name of it. Like, I know city slicker. I can't think of the other term. But let's just take the guy from the country. He is going to appear to be dumb because he understands the strategic advantage he gets from appearing to be dumb. And so this survey, while it makes it seem like, oh, hell, Republicans are dumb, no, this is just a demonstration of their propensity towards propaganda and the use of strategic ignorance or intentional obtuseness to push their political agenda, period. All right, moving on. A couple of other stories that I've been wanting to hit. Man, I definitely miss talking with you guys. Definitely, I'm gonna have my camera up as soon as I possibly can. As soon as I get it up, we will Okay. All right. So this is breaking news coming from the Associated Press. Just came into my my notes here. Breaking from Minnesota, the officer who was acquitted in the killing of Philando Castile is going to receive $48,500 in an agreement to leave the department. I won't let my natural instinct to get pissed off tackle me here. The reason I won't is because this is what happens in America. This guy is essentially getting probably 1 year's salary. It looks like he's getting a 1 year salary to leave the department. He's already been found not guilty. And the department, I do believe the department was going to fire him anyway because he broke their procedures. But I have to double check on that. But it appears as though he's getting some type of settlement to leave 1 year's salary, if I had to guess, $48,500 for him to leave the Minnesota Police Department. It's just another day, man. It's just another day in America, aka America. It's another day where officers, hell, I mean, Tupac, man. Tupac said it, you know. I don't even have to repeat it. Actually, I guess I should. I should repeat it, but he said it, man. You cops, I don't want to use the language, but the cops, you shoot a black man and you're a hero. Not only are you a hero, but you get a prize. You get a bounty. Think about Darren Wilson out of Ferguson. I mean, he came up, the best thing he could have done for his life. This is how dark and how grimy America really is. The best thing Darren Wilson could have done for his life was for him to kill Michael Brown. You know why? Because as soon as he shot Michael Brown, all the GoFundMe accounts got revved up across the country. Everybody had to make sure that they took care of this heroic police officer for killing a black man. And then not only that, but he got hundreds of thousands of dollars from ABC and George Stephanopoulos to have an exclusive interview. So the best thing this man ever did in his life was to kill a black man. Sorry. No, I'm not. That shit should make you mad. There is a bounty on the heads of black people in America. Because if you can get enough national exposure for your crimes against the black community, you're going to have about 50% of America who empathizes with you, sees you as a hero, and they're going to fill your coffers with money to reward you. I mean, think about that shit. And now the killer, the murderer of Philando Castile is getting go away money. That's what it is. When instead he should be locked up in jail. Absolutely disgusting. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. It's the truth if I ever heard it. It's the truth if I ever heard it. That if you kill a black man, you become a hero. You become a hero, and not only a hero, but you could become a rich hero. Cops give a damn about a Negro, pull the trigger, kill a nigga, and he's a hero. Not only that, he's a rich man. Philando Castile's murderer, he's not, $48,000 don't make you rich, but $48,000 is going to take care of him until he finds something else while Philando Castile is dead in his grave. Juxtapose that to the lawsuit that we just read about this morning from the Washington Post. Donna Grodner, whatever the hell her last name is an attorney, an ambulance chaser in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She's suing DeRay McKesson, Janetta Elise, and the other members of Black Lives Matter. She's suing them for $75,000 on behalf of one of the officers who was shot and injured in the attack 2 years ago that killed 3 Baton Rouge police officers, but critically wounded several others, one of them who's permanently disabled. You have an attorney now trying to blame Black Lives Matter. And I mean, they've been blaming Black Lives Matter all along, but now they're trying to take it to court to make actual individual members of Black Lives Matter or representatives, or because they're not even an official organization. They're not even an official organization. They're more of a social movement. But she has started a GoFundMe account in order to raise money to sue DeRay McKesson. And if you listen to my show any amount of time, you know I have ambivalent feelings about DeRay for many reasons. But I know that this lawsuit is 100% bullshit, and she's trying to come up quick, trying to get rich, and if the cop doesn't get rich for killing him, now lawyers are trying to get rich suing him. It's craziness. This is the state of America. And even more than the fact that this ambulance chaser attorney in Baton Rouge is trying to come up and get rich, this is a direct affront to our First Amendment right to speak out and protest. More specifically, this is an attempt to silence anyone who has anything to say, not only about the police in America, but also about the structure of white supremacy in America. This is what this is really about. This is trying to scare every other protester, every other activist, every other civil rights leader, every other person who will come out and stand up for our rights. This is an attempt to scare them into silence, because how many of us actually have money for an attorney? I mean, hell, if DeRay hadn't been doing all these endorsements on his Twitter timeline, he probably wouldn't have money for an attorney either. Sorry, DeRay, not really. But seriously, this is a direct affront to our civil liberties, to our First Amendment right to speak out, and more specifically, it's an attempt to crush any opposition to police brutality. So meanwhile, on one hand, you got the murderer of Philando Castile, Officer Jimenez, coming up with a year's free salary to just go away. You now have attorneys across the country using GoFundMe. They're trying to come up like Darren Wilson without having to kill somebody. That's all that is. I want to say 857-600-0518 to weigh in on the discussion, but actually just leave your comments in the comment section and I'll be able to comment. What do you think about any of these stories, man? Tell me what you think about these stories. And it's kind of a, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous in the sense, oh yeah, okay, Amy. Amy in Facebook wants me to talk about the NRA ad. I guess I might as well. I mean, I'm already pissed off. I might as well. I mean, you guys saw that ad last week from Dana Loesch, right? So Dana Loesch on last week, not last week, but I believe the ad actually came out June 12th. So the ad is a little old, but this should just put everything in context of what we're talked about so far, right? It's almost like a ribbon of putting a bow around the entire conversation. There was an ad that was pushed by the NRA that came to light about 2 weeks ago. And in the ad, they directly, actually, I'm sorry, not the Dana Loesch ad, but the ad by a response to DeRay McKesson directly. Right? Because DeRay called out the Dana Loesch ad, and I really hope that you guys are up on this. I don't have those ads handy right now, but you can find them anywhere on Twitter or Facebook and YouTube. But the Dana Loesch ad from the NRA essentially called for a violent insurrection against liberalism. And trust me, when they say liberalism, they include progressivism. They include leftism. So everything that's not conservative. Dana Loesch called for essentially a violent revolution, a violent insurrection, a taking up of arms, and basically the pretext for a civil war. And DeRay rightfully called it out, basically saying that the level of violence that it speaks to, but as well the reality that if a black person, if he had come out with that ad, he would be in jail. The response from the NRA to DeRay McKesson was a direct attack on DeRay McKesson. Right? It was directly coming at him, trying to blame him for any damages that occurred during a riot. And so instantly they tried to conflate riots with a protest. right? That's the standard play. No one wants to recognize the legitimacy of your protest. And so what they do is they take the opportunity, if they see any violence whatsoever, they use that as an opportunity to invalidate your protest. And so this is what the NRA ad did. Not only did it try to invalidate everything that Black Lives Matter has done and DeRay McKesson has done through protesting, they also try to lay at the feet of DeRay McKesson directly all of the officers who have been injured as a result of riots across the country. About 100 officers they cited in the ad. So it's very likely that this lawsuit against DeRay and Janetta came directly as a result of this ambulance chasing level attorney in Baton Rouge seeing that ad and saying, oh, snap, I can make some money. All right. Justin Luder said he's glad I'm back from vacation. Absolutely, I'm glad to be back with you guys in the saddle. I will do my best to have video on tomorrow. All right. Next up, I want to talk about a video, Emmanuel Macron, who is the newly elected president of France. And in a video today, and actually I'll pull up the entire transcript in a moment to discuss it. There seems to be a lot of argument about the context of what Emmanuel Macron was talking about. And I'm going to read what has gotten everyone up in arms. I'm going to read that, but then I'm going to read the entire transcript and then talk about it in context. Now, this is where I definitely want you to weigh in, because this conversation is going to be a very long one for me, because when I say long one beyond tonight, I'm not. This doesn't end tonight, this conversation, because there's so much involved in this that we have to dig in deep and not just let it stop with one show. All right, so my friend Joe Prince on Twitter, he tweeted out a video that was in French, so I can't play the video for you because no one has done a English translation over voiceover. But essentially, Joe Prince was pointing out that Macron was blaming Africa's problems. He stated that Africa's problems are civilizational and blames women with 7 or 8 kids. And he correctly identifies that it was a repugnant speech, at least in that context. And so I'm going to give it to you in context for the original tweet and the ensuing argument that took place on Twitter, which was a substantive argument. I know a lot of people are like, Twitter, all you talk about. No, there's a lot of brilliant stuff that happens on Twitter. I suggest you get in the conversation. But anyway, all right, so the first translation that came out, this is Macron saying, the challenge of Africa is completely different. It is much deeper. And this is in response to a question from a journalist asking about a so-called Marshall Plan for Africa. The Marshall Plan historically is a massive, massive spending plan on behalf of Europe, particularly the UK, after World War II, after their nations were completely ravaged. The United States, along with other nations, came together with the Marshall Plan and essentially rebuilt everything that was destroyed in those nations after World War II. This is how you had the United Kingdom at one time being a great power get completely devastated in World War II, but then very shortly after their complete and utter devastation, they were able to come back from the brink and become another great power shortly thereafter. It's because of the Marshall Plan. And so the journalist asked President Macron about, at the G20 summit this past week, what about this so-called Marshall Plan that people have talked about with regards to Africa? Why aren't nations pouring into Africa in the same way nations poured into Europe after World War II? And to that, Macron said, the challenge of Africa is completely different. It is much deeper. It is civilizational today. Failing states, complex democratic transitions, the demographic transition, and I'll call back what I said this morning. One of the essential challenges of Africa, and admittedly there's a cut here in the video, right? So it's kind of, it's a splice. And I want to make sure that you understand this sentence I'm getting ready to read is a splice. The first half is, one of the essential challenges in Africa, cut. One of the countries that today has 7 or 8 children born to each woman. You can choose to spend thousands of euros, but you will stabilize nothing. Now, in the context of the clip, the video clip, in the context of the original tweet by my friend Joe Prince, in the context of this first translation, this is some bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit, right? The reason it's bullshit is because it harkens directly to this, I hate to use this phrase, but victim blaming and racializing an economic problem and blaming the fact that Africa, which is not even a country, but 54 independent nations, right, saying that the problems of Africa are because women are having 7 or 8 children. And that is the fertility rate, I believe, in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken. That is a reality. However, how the hell do you have that conversation without putting into proper context the ravages, the damaging, the pillaging, the plunder of colonialism? When you have great poverty, you will always have high fertility rates. You will, because if nothing else, this is so coy. I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Fuck it. When I was in college and I was hollering at the locals, you know how that is, right? You're from a different city and you hollering at the locals, and I was hollering at some older women, because I always like older women. And I was talking to one on the phone, and I'm like, what's there to do around here? She said, ain't nothing to do around here. We poor. Only thing to do is drugs and sex. Right? That's a coy anecdote, but the data proves it out, right? So fertility rates, blaming the economic problems on the number of children that women are having in Africa completely absolves the French nation of their crimes in Africa. They're not just historically, they're continued crimes in Africa. And I swear, like, one of the things that gave me fucking heart palpitations was when I found out, because I didn't discover it, people already knew, when I found out that the Congo has damn near $23 trillion in natural resources, ore and iron reserves underneath their land. And then I realized how destabilized that nation is. It's not destabilized because this is what they want you to believe, man. They want you to believe that it's destabilized because Africans are inherently barbaric, which plays directly into colonialism. It plays directly into this narrative of Europeans having to come to African nations, and civilize them. And this is the literal language that Macron used, making it seem as though Africans are just not civilized enough. And don't worry, for everybody who's like, yeah, Ben, but in the broader context, I'm going to get to the broader context. But before I get to the broader context, he's got to be held accountable for his sloppy use of language. I don't care if he meant better. I don't care if he meant more. You've got to be held accountable for the words that came directly out of your mouth. To refer to the problems of Africa as being the problem of civilization, that is a direct hearkening back to colonialism. And then to do the quintessential example of welfare queens. Women having 7 or 8 babies. Do you know why they're having 7 or 8 babies? Quite literally because there's probably nothing there. Well, not only is there nothing there economically, societally, but you also have a ravaging of women's health and their ability to make choices of their own. And yet you're laying it at the feet of civilizing. They're uncivilized. All right, so I just had to get that off my chest real quick. Now I'm going to read his entire statement in full context, and you'll see why I started with being angry first, because even in full context, it doesn't get a lot better. I know they think it does, but it doesn't. All right, so here's the exact question from the reporter from the Ivory Coast, and here's the full response from President Emmanuel Macron of France. Question from the reporter. Is my microphone sliding down and down? I think it is. Shoot. Let me fix my microphone. Question from the reporter. The G20 have discussed the issue of poverty in Africa. We know that the Marshall Plan in Europe costs $150 billion of today's dollars. Concretely, how much are the G20 countries willing to commit to Africa today? And what is France's position on the matter? Emmanuel Macron's response, he said, I don't believe in this reasoning. Forgive me for my directness. Sorry. We among the West have been discussing such Marshall Plans for Africa for many years and have in fact given many such plans already. Bullshit. So if it was so simple, it would be fixed already. I don't know if I can make it all the way through this. I can't. I've got to pause. So this is the problem with this sentence. So if it was so simple, it would be fixed already. All right, so this is a classic deflection from having any responsibility today to your crimes of yesterday. And in France's case, their continued crimes in the nations of Africa. And the continued plunder that comes from major nations, including China, including Russia, including the United States, including France. Yes, the problems in Africa are complex. But the problems in Africa are directly connected to the plunder of white nations historically. And so while money may not fix it, you can't fix it without money. I feel like we're at church today, guys. I'm sorry. This is what happens when I put on a lavalier and I walk around like I'm a college professor or something. I easily switch back and forth from a college professor mode to being in a preacher mode. But money may not fix all of the problems, but the problems in Africa cannot be fixed without money. So this is a classic deflection of responsibility. So he goes on to say, the Marshall Plan was a reconstruction plan, a material plan in a region that already had its equilibriums, its borders, and its stability. The problems Africa faced are completely different and are much different and are civilizational. What are the problems? Failed states, complex democratic transitions, and extremely different demographic transitions. Multiple trafficking routes that pose severe issues, drug, human trafficking, weapons, violent fundamentalism, and Islamic terrorism. All of these create major issues in a region that at the same time has some some examples of excellent growth that prove the continent is a land of opportunity. Bitch, please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Everything that Macron just outlined is directly connected to what happened to the continent of Africa in and during and after colonialism. I'm sorry. Like, everything that he just said, France has blood on its hands for making that the case. The United Kingdom has blood on its hands for making that the case. China is getting its hands dirty and bloody for continuing to exacerbate the problems of colonialization. The fact that there are failed states coming full circle to the Congo. Do you know why Congo is perpetually a failed state? Because can you imagine a country with 77 million people with resources worth $24 trillion. What's the math on that? You're not going to get those resources out in one lifetime, but let's say you got those resources out in one lifetime. That instantly takes the per capita income of every single citizen of the Congo to $380 some odd thousand. Do you know what type of international power, and this is not just some abstract reserves. These are the minerals. These are the ore, the minerals that go inside of your cell phones. These are the metals. These are the rare metals that are in every single one of our smartphones. So not only is it a valuable, invaluable resource, but it's one of the most technologically necessary resources for what we use our technology for right now. Can you imagine the power player that the Congo would be on the international stage if they had a unified government that was protecting and able to protect its borders and its resources from the plunderers from European and now Asian nations, East Asian nations? Tomorrow I'm writing an article. Don't none of y'all steal it. I'm writing it tonight and I'm going to publish it tomorrow. Like, for the love of God, the Congo really should be Wakanda. Like, the Congo literally needs a freaking Black Panther to protect it from the colonialists. I mean, $24 trillion of natural resources. And the reason I bring that up in the context of this conversation on Macron is because there is a reason there would probably never be a unified government that's able to resist global actors like the United States and France and UK and China. Because they want to be able to plunder that nation and get the resources as cheap as they possibly can to pay slave wages. If they pay anything, they want to be able to do that. And they can't do it. The profit margin would be much lower if they have to work with a thriving, unified government. That's why the Congo will probably always be a failed state. And so when Macron points out the complex difficulties of Africa are many, and money will not address it all. Bitch, the problem is money won't fix it all, but the other problem is the reason the states are failed and the reason the difficulties are so complex is because Europe and the Americas and the United States of America and China, you have been destabilizing the region forever. It is the way it is because that's how Europe needs Africa to be. And yet, he has the nerve and the gall and the audacity to sit on his ivory tower and criticize the conditions of Africa while absolving himself and the nation of France from any responsibility, financial responsibility to Africa. If you're going to talk about a Marshall Plan for Africa, you have to understand that what was spent in Europe was enough to help them recover from all of the destruction after World War II. Similarly, a Marshall Plan for any, not even the entire continent, take one of the 54 nations of Africa. A Marshall Plan for that nation would require spending to help them recover from all of the ravages of colonialism. Think about that, and then understand why his bullshit statement today is still bullshit, no matter how much context you give it. All right, I'm going to finish it, though. I'm going to finish reading this comment. Violent fundamentalism, Islamic terrorism, all these create issues in a region that at the same time has some examples of excellent growth that prove the continent is a land of opportunity. I mean, can you imagine the nerve of someone coming to your home, man? The gall of this statement. Someone coming to your home, robbing you, plundering your home, destabilizing your household, and then turning around and giving a speech about the potential that your household has for growth and success. So if we want, this is Macron. So if we want a serious answer to African issues and African problems, we must develop a series of politics that are much more sophisticated than a simple Marshall Plan or money transfer, which we agreed with the World Bank on. Yeah, whatever. We'll talk about the World Bank tomorrow. The matters of vital infrastructure, education, health, these are roles for financing, and it is our responsibility to help on these issues. In terms of security, we must help by linking with regional African stability instruments, which France is currently engaging in with the Sahel nations. Development security, there are also shared responsibilities. Such a Marshall Plan as you desire is also a plan that will be administered by African governments and regional blocs. It's by a more rigorous governance and a fight against corruption, a fight for good governance, a successful demographic transition when countries have today, when demographic transitions, when countries today have 7 or 8 children per woman. As today, spending billions of dollars outright would stabilize nothing. So the transformation plan that we have to conduct together must be developed according to African interests and by with African leaders. It must be a plan that must take into account the issues I've described using public-private partnerships and must be conducted on a regional and sometimes even national basis. The last part of a statement is accurate, but it does not take away the latent bigotry of what he said. And I know a lot of people are saying, yeah, but Ben, and I study economic development on the doctoral level. I just haven't finished my dissertation because I'm busy. Right? You know how that goes. So I'm not going to run around and say I'm Dr. Benjamin Dixon when I ain't. Anyway, that's an inside joke. Black folks know. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm an asshole, guys. I'm sorry. I study economic development on the doctoral level, and it is very simple. It is very, very true that high fertility rates does contribute to an exacerbation of poverty. However, correlation does not mean causality. It is not the cause of it. The poverty pre-existed these high fertility rates. And the high fertility rates, it becomes a cyclical form of poverty. And so that coupled with his language of civilization, right, civilizing of Africa, still lends to one of the most bigoted speeches. I don't care how accurate he was in the last paragraph. In the last paragraph, he was accurate because anything that is done must be done on a local, regional, national level. It must be done with consensus of African leaders and not done on behalf and to the benefit of Western nations. And this is exactly when he said that there's been a Marshall Plan in the past. No, there's been economic spending to the benefit of the United States in Africa, to the detriment of Africans. All right, so that's it. I'm done with that. I don't have much time, and I want to read your comments. So let's take a look back at what you have to say. What do you have to say about it, YouTube? What do you have to say about it, Facebook? We have to bring down the whole system, Deuce 42. A Marshall Plan for the continent of Africa would never happen. It's directly antithetical to the agenda of the Western world, Russia, and China. Absolutely. I mean, that's more succinct than I said it. I gave you all the backstory and as much backstory as I could remember off the top of my head. But the bottom line is, it is not in the economic interest of the great world powers to have a financially stable, politically stable Africa. And I will use Africa as one phrase right now, right? Because there are nations that are stable, that are prosperous within the African continent. Let's read a couple of comments. Q got no ring. Sorry, Q. No call-ins today, man. Aloe Lion, no video today. Just kind of hustling. I wanted to make sure I talk to you guys. I should have video on phones tomorrow. Wesley Williams said, the West needs Africa to survive. When you break down Africa, the West has their hands in their natural resources. There is an article that shows that 13 countries paid for France, continue to pay. Like, they're paying for the privilege of having been colonized by France. 13 nations. Q Got No Rings on Facebook, on YouTube said, if only Africa had leaders like Sankara and Lumumba. Yeah, thank you. Oh, wait, France killed them too. Exactly. Exactly. This has been, this is a slap in the face. This is someone who literally has contributed directly, has the blood on their hands. They have contributed to the destabilization of the entire continent, of many of the nations inside of the continent, now coming back saying, you're just not civilized enough. And those fertility rates, man, those fertility rates are problematic. And it's so complex. The problems are so complex because you have destabilized nations. And I'm like, but bitch, you've been destabilizing the nations for longer than most people have been alive. You've been destabilizing the nations since their great-grandparents were here. They're our ancestors. You've been destabilizing the region for your economic benefit. And now you want to lecture a man who has the nerve to ask you about a Marshall Plan for Africa. The bottom line is, if you add up what the international community owes Africa, they will never be able to pay it back. But they need to get to trying. And if nothing else, you want to know what a Marshall Plan is? If we're going to do it on a nation-by-nation basis, hands off of the Congo. Get the hell out of the Congo. If there's any activity in the Congo whatsoever, it is to help establish a democratically elected government that has the ability to have the legitimate use of force. In other words, the Congo needs a unified government that can fight back and control the varying factions and warlords. Because it's only at that point will they be able to create a unified government and a unified nation such that they can push back and make these plundering nations pay what they should pay for the resources of the Congo. That in itself would be a Marshall Plan with $24 trillion worth of natural resources underneath their feet. But alas, that will never happen. And you know why? Because then Apple would have to pay full price. And then you and me, with our iPads and our iPhones, would end up having to pay $2,000 for them instead of $700 for them. Capitalism. All right, folks, it's been fun. I'm going to end there. I have so many other stories that I didn't even get to. But it's time for me to get out of here, and I will see you tomorrow. Does this work? Yeah.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.